Welcome to the Jay Sizzle Football Podcast. Today, I'm doing another episode on individual NFL teams. Today, I'll be discussing the New York Giants. If you haven't checked out the podcast that I dropped yesterday about the Minnesota Vikings, make sure you check that one. I'm going to be trying to do podcasts daily now, just so you guys know, with the football ones, because I want to try to get them all in before the regular season. And we don't have too long before the regular season starts, so I'm going to try to, do a team every day. So I'm going to do the Giants today. I'll be dropping a schedule pretty soon for you guys so you guys know what teams are on which days so you guys can get an idea of, okay, hey, my favorite team's the Jaguars. They're in a week from now. My favorite team is the Jets. They're tomorrow. So you can get an idea. They are not tomorrow, but you can get an idea of what team is coming up when. And then from there, you'll kind of be able to see, obviously, when your favorite team is up. And you can, of course, get into that podcast probably even more than the other ones because that's your favorite team. So tomorrow will be, just so you guys know, I'll drop the schedule later, but I'll give you guys tomorrow's podcast. Tomorrow's podcast will be about the Detroit Lions. So without further ado, let's get started on the New York Giants. So interesting season coming up this year for the New York Giants. It's a lot of prove yourself seasons for a lot of the players on this team, whether it's Daniel Jones or Saquon, and it's really not Saquon because of performance, it's more Saquon because of injuries, right? We know he performs at a high level when he's healthy. He's one of the best in the world. But for guys like Daniel Jones, Saquon, Sterling Shepard, right? For a lot of these guys, it's kind of, okay, prove it or you're gone type of year. Maybe not actually, I should repeat that. Not for Saquon because, Saquon's dealt with injuries, but definitely for guys like Sterling Shepard and Daniel Jones. It's definitely a prove it year. And it's the kind of year where it's, hey, you show us your value, and if you don't show us the value that we, put on you or the value that, fans and media think you can be, then it's time for you to go, right? So Daniel Jones is the big one, right? Let me discuss him first a little bit. So obviously, this is Daniel Jones' third year. This will be his third season in the league. Last season, he threw 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, right? So last season wasn't a very good season. His issues fumbling the football were still very prevalent. And, he just didn't really seem to make any progress from his first year. His first year was pretty good. It wasn't that bad. Last year, if anything, actually, not even progress. He seemed to kind of decline, if anything, after his first year, which is never a good sign for a sophomore quarterback because you always say it like this. Quarterbacks in their first year, there's not much film on quarterbacks in their rookie year. So that's why a lot of quarterbacks play well in their rookie year. When you go into your second year, there's film in your second year. Right? Teams have film on you. They know your game more. And that's where a lot of the quarterbacks, come out and see if they're going to be make it or break it quarterbacks, right? You look at a guy like Kyler Murray, right? First year was solid, better than Daniel Jones' first year, right? Not by much, but it was better. And then second year was even better than his first year for Kyler Murray, and it was way, way better than Daniel Jones' second year. So that's why you look at a guy like Kyler Murray and you're like, okay, there's a really good future for Kyler Murray because even with all the film that they have on him, and everything else and all the analytics that they have on him in the league because he played in the league a year, this is going into a second year, imagine, right? He still surpassed the film and the analytics they have on him, and he's played even better. So most likely, he should be able to obviously be a very good quarterback for a long time in this league, right? Because he passed that year 2 mark. Daniel Jones did not pass that year 2 mark. So now this is the big year for Daniel Jones. This is the year if Daniel Jones plays well, the Giants will hold on to him. If Daniel Jones doesn't play well, the Giants are gonna move on. They're gonna look to move on because if Daniel Jones does not play well, that's 3 years you have put down the drain with a quarterback, and you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, well, he hasn't really made any progress. He's not that great, really. He's not an NFL type quarterback. Why would I want to have him for another 4th year when we're going to go through the same thing again? So this is the make it or break it year for Daniel Jones. He needs to play well. If I could give a personal opinion, I like Daniel Jones, and I hope he does play well, but I don't trust him. I don't think he will play well. I think the Giants will get rid of him after this season. And you can tell that this is like the last season for him too because they're adding weapons for him. They added Kadarius Toney in the draft. I'll talk about him in a minute. But they're adding weapons for Daniel Jones, right? They beefed up the offensive line a little bit. They're adding weapons for Daniel Jones. So, and they also added Kenny Golladay. That's the big one. He's a number 1 receiver. He'll go for over 1,000 easy if he's healthy and probably 8-9 touchdowns, if not more. So that's the big one. Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, and you still have Sterling Shepard. And you still have Darius Slayton. Evan Ingram's not too bad. And you have a solid offensive line. You need to play well this year. You need to play. This is the big year for him. This is the big year for Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones can't play well this year, then it's time to move on because you're giving him all the weapons in the world you can give him. And if he still doesn't play well, then you know it's not the team, it's not the organization, it's Daniel Jones, right? It's Daniel Jones. So, let me get into the offensive line really quick, right? I know a lot of people are not going to be too high on this offensive line, and I mistakenly said something about the offensive line, and I was just in talking, so I didn't go back. I'll go back now. The offensive line was not great last year. It was not. It was better than it has been when Eli was there towards the end of his career, for sure. It's better than it was when Eli was at the end of his career, but the offensive line still needs a little bit of work. But I think it's personally gotten better. You added Zach Fulton, who I think will play well at the guard spot. You added Jonathan Harris, who I think will play well at the center spot. So that's why when I said they beefed up their O-line and they have a good O-line, I didn't mean last year. I mean, I think this year they beefed it up, and I think this year you'll actually see a pretty good offensive line from the Giants, probably around 15, 16 in the league. Good enough to sustain what they have at running back if Saquon can hopefully stay healthy, and what they have at the receiving core. So big year for Daniel Jones. This is a make or break year. For Saquon Barkley, obviously we know what happened with Saquon last year. He got hurt, tore his ACL, was out for the season. So, they're looking obviously for Saquon to come back. They have high expectations for him. They're going to probably bring him in slow and just make sure everything's okay and everything goes well and goes according to plan. Saquon obviously when healthy is one of the best running backs in the league. We know that. The issue is he just has to stay healthy. So hopefully this year we can see a fully healthy Saquon Barkley for all 17 games. That would be a great thing to see, not just for the Giants, but for, NFL fans and everyone, because Saquon's it's hard not to be a fan of Saquon. He's an unreal player. He seems like a great guy, and it's just, I want to see him out there healthy because I know what he can do on the field when he's healthy. He's crazy. He's one of the most talented players in the league for sure. And, seeing him on the field healthy, it just brings a whole other dimension to the New York Giants football team. It brings this Giants team to a whole other level offensively, and it will honestly help Daniel Jones a lot because then that means that a guy like Daniel Jones won't have to have so much pressure on his shoulders in his make or break year, and he also won't have to throw the ball as much, which will take pressure off his shoulders because he can say, hey, I can hand it to Saquon, and Saquon can do a lot. So obviously that will help Daniel Jones' game, of course. To the receivers, let me go into the receivers a little bit. I did discuss them a little bit, but not too much. I want to kind of get more into that. Sterling Shepard, I think this is a make or break year for him. Has a lot more potential. I mean, the injuries are there too much for Sterling Shepard, and even when he's healthy, there's no consistency, in my opinion. He only had 3 touchdowns last year. So that's something you want to see. Of course, go up a little bit. I know he missed a little bit of time, but still, only 3 touchdowns. I think he played 12 games, only 3 touchdowns. You want to work on that a little bit, right? He's not a great touchdown guy, but and he's not a great yards guy either. He doesn't average a lot of yards per catch either. So, yeah, this is the make or break year for Sterling Shepard. I know what kind of potential he has, and he showed a lot of potential in his first 2 years, and he's kind of dipped off the last couple of years. But yeah, this is the year Sterling Shepard needs to show the Giants why he's worth it. So you still you bring back Evan Ingram, the tight end, right? Evan Ingram had a lot of issues last year with dropped balls. Evan Ingram is another guy I think I didn't mention earlier. I think it's a make or break time for him too. I think the Giants will look to trade him if he doesn't perform well this year. Evan Ingram is a guy who has so much potential, so much speed at the tight end spot compared to other tight ends, but his hands are just not that good, and his route running is not that good either. And those are 2 things that he could easily work on. Like the crazy thing is those are 2 things I feel like as a tight end and he's a good blocker too. The toughest things to learn as a tight end is the blocking and the athleticism. The athleticism is a gift, right? He has a gift athleticism-wise, right? He's one of the most athletic tight ends in the league. That's a gift. He has a gift for blocking, right? He worked on the blocking. He worked really hard his whole career. Obviously, you can tell he's a great blocker. But now he can't run routes, and he can't catch the ball that well. Those are 2 things that could easily be worked on, in the training camp this year. I know the Giants are still going through their training camp, but that could be something that the Giants hopefully worked on during training camp, and that can easily be, fixed going into next year. And he could go over 800 to 1,000 yards next year if he can fix that issue. But you have to see if he can fix that issue because we've been saying that for a lot of years. His potential is through the roof, but he can't fix the catching issues and he can't fix the route running issues. So this is the last chance I think the Giants are going to give him. You can't just sit on a guy for 6-7 years and expect him to keep performing. Expect him to be like, hey, this is the year. Well, eventually you got to move on, right? Football's a business, and if your guys aren't performing the way they should, and you can get something back for them that you like that helps your team, you got to move on, right? That's part of the game. So, it's like the other day with Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller has a lot of potential, right? And I think Anthony Miller is going to end up being a really, really good player in the NFL. But he's a guy who's kind of getting into his career a little slow. And, the Bears traded him yesterday for a second-round pick to Houston. So the Bears are saying, hey, you go get a fresh start. Maybe the Giants do that with Evan Ingram this year, but the fact of the matter is eventually, if a guy doesn't perform to his potential, you have to move on. And that's what the Bears did with Anthony Miller yesterday. And that's what the Giants will do with Shepard, Daniel Jones, and Evan Ingram if they can't find their true potential and they don't perform well this year, because it's been a little while for these guys, and they don't perform well. It's time to move on. Kadarius Toney, we know they drafted him. He should really help this receiving core. He's got a lot of speed at the receiver spot. I think he'll be a good receiver. I think he'll fill in here and get 700 yards in his rookie year. You had Kenny Golladay, who I said I think will go for over 1,000 yards. Who'll be your wide receiver number 1. I think Kadarius Toney will play in the slot. And then I think on the other side and the outside, you'll either have Shepard or Darius Slayton, right? But let me go to Kenny Golladay really quick. Golladay missed a lot of the year last year with the Lions due to injury, but we know when Galladay's healthy, he's still very young, and we know how well he can perform. So this should obviously help Daniel Jones, and it's cool for Kenny Golladay too, because he got a big payday that he deserved, right? He's been very underappreciated for a long time now. And, it adds a true number 1 wide receiver to the New York Giants, something that they haven't had since OBJ. So it has a true number 1 again to this New York Giants team. So something to look forward to for Giants fans. I know they're excited about the addition of Kenny Golladay, for sure. So how about Darius Slayton? Let's talk about him really quick. Kind of fall off year last year, in my opinion. Only had 3 touchdowns. Had 750 yards, but only with 50 catches, right? Not only with 50 catches. Sorry, let me rephrase that again. He averaged 15 yards per catch, which is ridiculous, right? We know his speed. We know his, how his separation on corners, how well he is in one-on-one cover, in one-on-one situations. But I meant to rephrase it like this. Yes, you have 750 yards. Yes, you average 15 a catch, but the 50 catches you should have more than 50 catches. He should be a guy who should be getting around 70, 75 catches. He's good enough for that, right? And 2 years ago, we saw him play much better. This year, he's kind of fallen off a little bit. Or last year, he fell off a little bit. The year before, he played much better. So definitely something for the Giants to look for this year. Hopefully, they can get a good performance out of him. I honestly have more trust in him than Sterling Shepard. He's more consistent, I think. So I think they'll put Darius Slayton on the outside, Kadarius Toney on the slot, and then Kenny Golladay on the outside as the wide receiver 1. So Golladay is the 1, Slayton as the 2, and then Kadarius Toney as the slot receiver. I think that's the best way the Giants can go in terms of this, receiving core. Now, on to something a little better for the Giants, right? Because this offense is a little all over the place. We don't really know what we're going to get out of it this year. And a lot of guys, like I said, have the make or break year written all over them. Onto their defense, and this is exciting. This is the exciting part if you're a Giants fan, right? Because the defense is very exciting, right? One of the better defenses in the league, in my opinion. An incredible secondary. Let's start with the secondary first, right? Your secondary consists of James Bradbury, who you added last year in free agency, who played incredible. One of the best corners in the league last year, and he's still relatively young. He's going to have an unreal career ahead of him. You have Logan Ryan, right? We know what Logan Ryan is capable of at the cornerback spot, right? Came in from Tennessee last year, played pretty well last year, in my opinion. So, he's really going to help this team again going into next year. He's still relatively kind of young, so he'll help for a little while with that team for sure. You bring in Adoree Jackson, right? I think Logan Ryan will play the slot and Adoree Jackson will play outside, probably, in my opinion. But no, Adoree Jackson, I'm excited to see him too in the Giants uniform because he's very undervalued and underrated in this league. And I think, in the Giants organization where there's more spotlight on him and more attention, I think he'll shine even more than he ever did with Tennessee, and he'll get more attention and people will really start to understand how good he is. So big pickup there. And then, of course, you have Xavier McKinney, who is going into his second year, had an unreal rookie year last year, right? So that's going to be a really fun thing to keep an eye out for. And then you have Jabril Peppers, of course, the always reliable Jabril Peppers, right? Great player, plays all around the field. He's always on every part of the field making plays, making tackles, deflecting passes, intercepting balls, picking up fumbles, forcing fumbles, right? He does everything for this team at that safety spot. He's kind of like the captain of the defense, right? He does everything for that secondary and for that team defensively, in my opinion. So, of course, Jabril Peppers, we know what he'll bring to the table this year. He's been solid every year in his career. I know this year I think his contract's up, so he's looking for a contract extension. I expect the Giants to pay him well and make him one of the higher paid safeties in the league because I think he deserves it. He's very underrated and undervalued. So no, this Giants secondary is big time. This Giants secondary is big time for sure, and it's definitely something to look forward to because they have one of the better secondaries in the league. Now let's go to the D-line. How about Leonard Williams last year? Double-digit sacks, on the D-line for the Giants, one of the better D-linemen in the league. Just an absolutely incredible season last year for him, and he looks to, again, play the same way this year and get double-digit sacks for the second year in a row. That would be a big thing for this Giants team. It would be a lot of help. How about Dexter Lawrence? He plays end for this team. He's a D-end. He had a good year last year. A lot of people look at him as like the staple of the defensive line. That's up for question in my opinion. I kind of would still look at Leonard Williams as a staple of the D-line, but listen, Dexter Lawrence is very good, and he's going to have a really good career ahead of him. He's still young. He's going into his third year. Leonard Williams, if I didn't mention it, is going into his seventh, so he's a little older, but he still has a couple more, solid years for sure ahead of him. But no, Dexter Lawrence is probably the future of this D-line without a question. But Leonard Williams, I think, is still the staple for a couple more years. So, yeah, the D-line is good. It's solid all around. They're relatively young still, in my opinion. And then you go to the linebacker spot. Pretty interesting linebacking core here for the New York Giants because it's not the strongest core in the league, but it's good enough to do the job, right? It's good enough to do the job. Lorenzo Carter out of Georgia, he'll be going into his third year. He's returning from a torn Achilles, so hopefully this is a year that he can, show the Giants why he's, has a lot of potential going into his third year and why the injury was just a fluke and why, he's going to come back even stronger after the injury. So I'm hoping for that. I'm really praying and hoping that Lorenzo Carter comes back even stronger after the injury because I'm a big fan of his game. He plays the linebacker spot well. He's a good tackler and he covers tight ends pretty well too. So excited to see him. Blake Martinez, not much to say about him. If he can get 100-plus tackles this year, it will be his fifth straight year with 100-plus tackles. Not a great tight end coverage guy, but he does a great job with tackling and, stuffing up the runs. So, Blake Martinez is a guy you need on every team. A guy like that, you need him on every team at the linebacking spot for these teams because these teams need guys that can get 100-plus tackles a year or even near that. They need run stoppers. They don't just need guys that can guard the tight end. You also need run stoppers, and the Giants have that with Blake Martinez for sure. So, that's going to wrap it up for the New York Giants podcast. What do you guys think? I want you guys to give me a prediction. Oh, actually, let me not wrap that up. Let me do the record prediction for you guys because I know, that's something that I did with the Bears and I did also with the Vikings yesterday too. So let me do the record prediction. They open up with Denver at home. I think they'll win that one. They go into Washington on the road, game week 2, loss, so 1-1. Atlanta. At home, I think they'll win 2-1. On the road in New Orleans, I think they'll lose 2-2. In Dallas, I think they'll lose 2-3. The Rams at home, they'll lose 2-4. Carolina at home, they'll lose 2-5. In Kansas City, you'll lose 2-6. Las Vegas at home, you'll win 3-6. In Tampa, you'll lose 3-7. Philly at home, you'll win 4-7. Miami on the road, you'll probably lose 4-8. The Chargers on the road, you'll lose 4-9. Dallas at home, win 5-9. Philly on the road, 5-10. Chicago on the road, 5-11. And then you got Washington at home. I'm going to say they lose that one too, 5-12. So I'm going to say the Giants go finish this season at 5-12. And that's going to obviously bring up, a lot of questions. That's going to bring up a lot of Daniel Jones questions. That's going to bring up a lot of questions about Sterling Shepard. It's going to bring up a lot of questions about Darius Slayton as well. It's going to bring up a lot of questions in general just about this team and where this organization is, right? Evan Ingram, too, is going to bring up questions about him. It's going to bring up a lot of questions about the team, the players, the organization, and everything because this is a Giants team who really hasn't been great the last 4 or 5 years at all. They haven't done anything really, remotely close to, being competitors, right? Or being able to compete for a Super Bowl. Their roster has gotten better over the last couple of years, but you can also argue at the same time that they haven't drafted that well, right? Because let me go back here. Let me look at the last couple of drafts. Andrew Thomas, you drafted. Well, okay, so you drafted Kadarius Toney this year, solid pick. You drafted Andrew Thomas last year. Again, he's one of the reasons why I think this offensive line will, like I mentioned, will be much better this year, and he's one of the reasons why because he's going into his second year. He had a solid rookie year, and I think he'll have a better second year. So 2 good picks in a row, right? Then I go back and I look at Daniel Jones. Not really, in my opinion. 1 more year to tell. Saquon, good pick. Evan Ingram, not so much. Eli Apple, definitely not. Right? I'm not trying to be mean, right? I'm just being honest here. Eli Apple has a lot of potential. He just didn't love that Giants organization. He didn't really fit with them. And, he's had a lot of injuries, and yeah, that's not the Giants' fault. But at the same time, you still have to look at it as not a very good pick for where they got it at in round 1 at number 10. So team doesn't draft too well, which leads me to think that this is not a great organization. So, and I don't know, and I don't really love the quarterback situation. So it's just those two things right there: a bad organization, not a great quarterback situation, never match up well at all. They never have. So let's see. I mean, that's going to wrap it up. But again, I want you guys to give me your comments below on what you guys think about the New York Giants this year. Put them on YouTube, put them on the Instagram, right? Just let me know what you guys think, because it's definitely going to be an interesting year for the Giants, and can't wait to look forward to it. Have a good one, guys.